Ladies and gentlemen, we have made it in here to another live, publicly buzzed on a Sunday, a special stream here today after Murder Church. I really appreciate everyone for coming through here. I see a lot of fine folks already hanging out. If you guys wouldn't mind to give it the old share on the old X machine and in any Discords or any socials you may be a part of, and hit the like. That really helps us out here. I've got a really good guest back here today. Returning, I've been having him come on for some different things. We've tackled some Charles Manson. We've tackled UFOs. Today, we're going into a trial that's coming up that is probably the one that I'm most looking forward to, actually. The Idaho 4 murders. Brian Kohberger is going on trial as of right now, still in August. That is definitely pending and could change with a lot of the stuff that's happening. But one thing that is super interesting, since I've been covering this, which is about 2 years now, early on, some folks found a teenage Brian Kohberger who was making these posts on a website that I'd never heard of, and they're still accessible, TapaTalk.com. And this specific one that we're going to be looking at today is from 2011. So I'm excited. Got Jack from Never a Truer Word back here. He's going to be analyzing this post and breaking it down for us, which I'm really excited about. Again, thanks everyone for coming in. Without further ado, what's up, Jack?
Hey, how are you?
Good, man. How you doing?
I am doing well, thank you. It's like summer here in the UK, which is always a bonus compared to what our winters can be like.
Oh, dude, you guys have brutal winters?
Do you know what? I think some people around the world, some people in the States would not call them brutal, but I don't like them. They're just gray and miserable. Yeah.
I hate it. I've actually been bitching because we're a month out, 20 days out from official summer here in the US, and it's still cold where I'm at. Being on the South and West Virginia, dude, I'm waking this morning. I had to crank the heat on a little bit.
Oh no, that's not good. No, it's been like we've had a glorious May. It's been a bit wet this weekend, but it's like, come on, we can do it. We can make this last all summer,
dude. Yes, man. I love summer vibes. Honestly, I really do. I'm not. If it's overly hot and it gets humid, I get it. That sucks. But I would much prefer that over the cold winters, man. Real quick before we really get into here, I do want to go ahead and give a shout out here to Mandy Joe coming through, becoming a member. Thank you, Mandy. As I said there in the chat a second ago, we had a spin this morning on Murder Church. We gave away a shirt, and I'm giving away another one. The next time we get 12 names on this wheel, we're at 3 right now. Factual Eye, Micah, and now Mandy will give away another Publicly Buzzed shirt. And anybody that does not know, publiclybuzz.com. I got a lot of cool shirts, got a lot of cool merch. So go check that out. But Mandy, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. But yeah, Jack. So have you really dove into much of this Kohberger, Idaho stuff?
No, I remember at the time when shortly just after the murders, and there was, as there is with true crime, lots of people giving interviews to the news, and this neighbor's sketchy, and this person needs looking at, this taxi driver is speaking weird, and I did quite a bit of work around that at the time then, because it was just one of those things where there was so much speculation, so many people talking, it was really worth getting into. But since then, the person of interest, Brian Kohberger, has not spoken, so there's been nothing for me to dig into.
That's true. Yeah, actually, this is going to be interesting just because this is coming out. And again, I like to preference it that this is a teenage Brian Kohberger, but it's still kind of interesting to kind of dig into at least where his mind was then, and he's getting into. One of the real reasons he was making posts on this TapaTalk site is he was trying to, at least from going through a lot of these posts, figure out this thing called visual snow. Something that he learned that he had, and he was trying to navigate his life at this point almost as a teenager. And then now knowing what has happened and what he's accused of, of course we got to get the trial and see how that all lays out. But personally, from just seeing a lot of stuff, I have to say that I right now think that they got the right guy. I still want to see this in trial, but there's a lot.
Yeah, I mean that's my view as well. Is that I think the right person is on trial. So let's let that process play out. I haven't seen all the evidence, but neither has anyone else on the internet going, oh, he's guilty. Yeah. Oh, he's innocent. We haven't seen everything yet laid out as it is. I think, trial is exactly the right place for this to be now.
Absolutely. And real quick, before we jump in here into the actual analysis by Jack, one more person came through. Donnie, not Wahlberg, just got membered up. Hell yes. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Getting yourself right on this wheel. And one thing, actually, if you guys could tell me in the chat, since I've come over to StreamYard getting some guests, does this work or do I have to do something? Jack, can you hear this?
Yeah. No, wait a minute. I can hear you talk, but I couldn't hear a noise.
Oh, okay. I was hitting my little things.
No,
little
no,
stream.
no.
I got to figure out how to get those in here, which I know is possible.
Well,
So I got to do that.
There was something there, like a shooting star or something.
It was a welcome to the party, pal.
Ah,
Yeah, I have these sound effects that I use sometimes, which, in OBS I have it set up in there, but yeah, I've got to figure out how to do that. Okay, cool. Nope. Nothing says Simi. I'll have to figure that out for you guys, because I think with guests, I'm going to keep doing this right here in StreamYard. This is for single shows. I'm still going to use OBS because I do know how that works, and I like some of the features, but this is too easy for guests, man. This is amazing. But yeah, let's move over here. Boom. And then I've also put this guy in here. I've learned that you can do some cool little things. So let me pop this guy in. Boom.
whoa!
We got a graphic. We got a graphic. But yeah, we can read through here. So I do have a question. Should we read all of this out the gate, or do you want to just break it down in pieces?
Let's go through it in pieces. I think is probably
Okay.
the easiest way to understand it. It also means I can talk through and say, watch out for this when he talks about this, because there's something in this. In fact, there's a couple of things in this which I find fascinating. I think I'll start off though by saying I did some quick math. Someone may correct me with the exact dates, but I believe Brian Kohberger is 30 now. So this was done in 2011, which would make him 17 at the time that he wrote this, which I think gives us just a little bit of context, because I have seen a lot of people say things like, oh my God, the posting here is so bleak and so dark. He must have killed those people. And I've seen other people say, didn't we all feel a bit like this as a teenager? This is entirely normal behavior. So I think there's just a little bit of context of knowing that the guy is 17 at the time he wrote this.
That's actually pretty interesting. He's right at adulthood. Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting. Yeah. And I've actually been kind of on the ropes myself, because again, I don't want to condemn this guy because of writings on the internet from 2011. I've said some really dumb shit on the internet in the past 20 years. I'm sure of it. But when you put that into the context of what this person is now being accused of,
yeah,
I think that there's something here, man. So
yeah. Sure. So listen, let's start with just what. So I've broken this into paragraphs. So I might talk about paragraphs at a time. It's really noticeable that he did not write this in paragraphs. This is just blah. But I broke it down a bit. Yeah.
Just spilling it out.
So if he's guilty of anything, it's not using the return key often enough when he was posting. So the first paragraph I've broken down is the very start there, which says, I have had this horrible depersonalization go on in my life for almost 2 years. I often find myself making simple human interactions, but it is as if I'm playing a role, a playing game such as Oblivion. I can see what is going on. I am slightly into it, but I can pause the game and focus on my real life. To me, this is an introduction. And what we're going to mention in our introduction, whenever we write anything, very early on, we're going to give it our priority. So think about when you write an email to someone, even if it is a sort of, a formal email, it might go, hey, how are you? And then it's bomb, and you mention the first thing, the thing that is the priority that you want to get to in most cases. So he talks about this horrible depersonalization that he's had going on for almost 2 years, which would be when he was 15. Then this started, and then he talks about, I often find myself making simple human interactions. So that's almost like the very first. He certainly mentions it very early on, which suggests that contact is important to him, because he's mentioned these human interactions just really early on. You'll also notice that in that bit that I flagged as the first paragraph, it's very I focused. It's very focused on him. I have had this depersonalization go on in my life. I often find myself making human interactions. It's as if I am playing a role-playing game. I can see what's going on. I am slightly into it, but I can pause the game and focus on my real life. So he's very internally focused on himself. I'm not saying, as I might with more of an adult, that this is arrogance or self-absorption. I think it is just it's a big internal influence or focus that he has on himself, which could be just classic introversion. It could be, like you said, it's definitely an age where we're sitting trying to figure ourselves out and work out who we are and make this transition from the playground into adult life, but certainly really focused in on himself.
Dude, yeah. And what I would like to, you mentioned it earlier, one thing that we don't really have right now is any statements from Kohberger outside of really just kind of some hearsay stuff. Even when it was time in the trial, or not the trial, excuse me, initially when he was first in front of Judge, when he had to make a plea, he stood silent. Then I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
So yeah, which is probably the smartest move to do at this point. Again, I mean, I actually think that he does have really good lawyers, and Ann Taylor, she's doing the best job she can with what she has. Quite frankly, I mean, I don't know what else you can do with some of the information that we have coming out here, but yeah, man, to be 17 years old in 2011, writing stuff like this on the internet, again, I can see, I remember having MySpace about when I was 18 or 19 years old. I remember having that, and I was in college, and you could blog. I don't know if you remember that or not. You could write blogs on there. So I definitely had some moments where I would spill out my heart onto social media or online when I was very young. And if looking back, I'm sure if I could reread that stuff, it'd be highly embarrassing. I wouldn't want that, I wouldn't want nobody to see that. But again, I'm going to probably say this multiple times here in the stream. You're not accused of a quadruple murder.
Yes. I thought it was interesting that he focused on, I often find myself making simple human interactions. He didn't need to use the word simple there. He could have just said, I often find myself making human interactions. So that suggests to me that he is focused on how simple these interactions is. So does he want more than simple interactions? Like, is he looking for something a bit more fulfilling from these interactions that he makes with people? Again, it's really easy to project onto someone who's 17, but is this about, wanting to form adult relationships, maybe with a member of the opposite sex, maybe a member of the same sex, depending on what it is that he is chasing there. But I get the feeling that he wants something deeper in his human interactions there, because he's referred to the ones that he can make as simple ones.
That is interesting.
We've got a bit of a daydreamer as well there. So this, you spoke about us doing Charles Manson earlier on, and I don't know if you remember, but when we looked at that, there was a lot of stuff about what was real life and looking in the mirror, and the sort of fantasy versus reality thing going on in his head. And there's the same thing here with Brian, that he talks about. I can pause the game and focus on my real life. It's as if I am playing a role-playing game. So there is definitely, I thought for me, it was a bit of a sense of a daydreamer here, that there is lots of things going on inside his head. And potentially, I was very much like this when I was around about that age, that the life I created inside my head, the life that I wanted to have, was much better than the real one I had when I was 16, 17. But then the other thing I want just to look at here is, now, this is fascinating for me. This is talking about visual snow, the condition that he says he's suffering from. However, he makes lots of mentions of vision all the way through this, and not, especially in this post, not connected with the condition. So he says, I can see what's going on and focus on my real life. And all the way through this, we will see, excuse the pun, we will hear lots of vision words mentioned about seeing and focusing and so on, which really interested me as to why the theme of those words was coming up. I do have a theory about that, which I might share near at the end. In the next paragraph, in this case, my life is the game, and my old self can be reached by pausing the game. But how? I often think of things humans do, things I've done in my whole life. Things I have done my whole life. I feel like an organic sack of meat with no self-worth, as I am starting to view everyone as this. So look, we've got some big themes going on from this guy. Like he's just he's looking at life and the human condition, if you like. This is deep thinking that he's sharing. You spoke about the stuff that you were maybe embarrassed about when you were that age. I'm not sure my thinking was that deep when I was that age. My thinking was way more surface, but he's talking about these deep things. And I get the feeling this is someone stuck in their own head, talking about pausing the game. Again, like there is a lot going on internally in the head. None of this makes this guy the killer of 4 people, by the way. Like this is just what I think is going on here. I'm interested that he talks about humans and not people. almost looking at others and everyone else as a species rather than people. Now, he spoke about human interactions, and yes, they are human interactions. Again, he's kind of classifying this almost in a scientific way, human interactions and humans, rather than talking to people or relating to people, being in relationships, and again looking at humans and this sack of meat with no self-worth is obviously showing that he has some issues going on in his head where he doesn't feel like he is worth very much. Again, I would give quite a lot of credence to the fact that a lot of people around about 17 do have thoughts like that as they move from that. The best way I can think of describing it is when I moved from, it's called primary school here, but it's the first school you go to high school, was I was like at my first school, the oldest, the tallest, the strongest, and then all of a sudden was plumped into this place where I had no clue what was going on, where I was the youngest and the weakest and all that sort of stuff. And I remember finding that
flipped.
A hell of a transition. And again, I did go through it. But when you sort of start on the verge of adulthood, once again, you are the youngest in the group. So I wonder if there's some things just going on like that with him at age 17. It's the second mention he makes of pausing things, which is curious to me. He can pause the game. And now he is talking about pausing the game again. He's obviously making, so I would say not potentially, I think there's a bit of a gamer going on with him there, because we tend to choose analogies that really work with our life. So I love cooking, so I will always make analogies around, like cooking and, seasoning food or choosing the best bits. So to meat to go in or something like that, he's making analogies around gaming going on there.
Yeah, the one part there that really sticks out to me is I feel like an organic sack of meat with no self-worth. That is heavy. Like, that's going back to what you mentioned, or what I originally mentioned, but what you just kind of touched on, an old school social media, MySpace bullshit blog post that I would have made. I would have never said, I would have never went down that road. Even if I was being self-deprecating, I don't think I would have called myself an organic sack of meat with no self-worth. That's pretty glaring to me.
Yeah, I know he did. He studied criminology at some point, didn't he? But I'm wondering if he did anything scientific as well. I mean, like more like the classic science, because we do have this categorizing of people as humans and then categorizing an organic sack of meat rather than just a sack of meat. I wonder if, that almost like biology was important to him at some point because of the way he's classifying things there at age 17. Did he study biology? Was he doing biology then? It wouldn't be a great leap to see him do that. And also he says, I'm starting to view everyone as this. So another sight word, view everyone as this. His use of words relating to sight is really, really fascinating. What he can see, I think, is very important to him, and beyond the eye condition that he is on this forum for.
And to go, I'm sure people that are pro Kohberger or even more on the fence of trying to figure this thing out, him saying he feels like an organic sack of meat, and then going into, now this is how I'm seeing everyone as well. I think that's pretty glaring with now what we know, and again, allegedly is capable of doing to other human beings.
Yeah, there is so much in this that you could just draw a straight line from what he is writing there to what he is accused of now. Saying that everyone, which is what he explicitly says there, at 17, he was starting to view everyone as an organic sack of meat with no self-worth. And there are more places there where you could draw that line. Not to say he did it. It's
That's
just
a crazy thing to say, though.
They are
even at 17 online on a random website. That's pretty wild.
Yeah. He carries on saying, everything I have ever done makes no sense. How did things get this way? How am I wearing this shirt? And who decided that humans shall wear shirts like this? Are we all just advanced animals with possession? Or is there more than I can't see, more that I can't see? Once again, we've got that vision word. Is there more that I can't see? He's obsessed with the things that he can see, what he can focus on. We've just got these big themes again. But they now start to get some vagueness in there. Everything I have ever done makes no sense. Everything?
Yeah, that's
everything. or is there some things that you have done that are not making sense to you now? Is there some actions you have taken, potentially because you started off talking about relationships? Has a relationship fallen apart, or has he treated someone badly? He does say he treats his dad badly later on in this, actually. So, when people talk in these absolute terms about everything I have ever done, I think there is a deliberate vagueness there in hiding something where people are being just that little bit more specific about what they mean, and that there is something in there that he's regretting. It's no great leap for me. He does say later he regrets how he's treated his father. I wonder if that's all there is to it, or whether he regrets how he treats his father and other people.
Just for a second, I'm going to take myself here as an example. When I get like really frustrated and something, a lot of times it's freaking technology for me. Something's not working and I'm starting to get frustrated. Where he said everything I have ever done, when I get really frustrated in that moment, I am real easy to be like, fuck everything, right? Screw this. Everything sucks.
Yeah.
Only this moment is it sucks. Only, this piece of technology or whatever is annoying me in that moment is what really sucks. But I just go overboard, right?
Yeah. One of my favorites is, oh, no one ever helps me. And then lots of people put up their hands and go, yeah, I've helped you. I've offered you
help.
You
want us to not help you? No, yes. Especially at like, which this would have been older when I was probably working a restaurant job or something. But yeah, you're frustrated. You'd feel like they're not picking up the slack. You know what I mean? But you're kind of playing woe me a little bit too a lot of times.
So yeah, when you talk about that, when you talk about things in absolutes and really wide and everything and no one and those sorts of things, there normally is a something in there that you're actually referring to. It feels to me here like something has changed in his life. He's sort of drawing a line to say everything I have ever done makes no sense. How did things get this way? So there seems to have been a switch at some point. I don't think it's just been a gradual. I think there's an event has happened somewhere along the lines. Again, we have humans, so categorizing. But who decided that humans shall wear shirts like this, not people, or we? If he said we, that would show a sort of connection to humanity and feeling joined up to society.
It's like he's some kind of alien. Yeah, that is strange.
And are we all just
disconnecting himself from humans?
Yeah. He's actually saying, are we all just advanced animals? So he's connecting himself actually more with the advanced animal because he uses the pronoun we there. He doesn't, suggest that he's part of the humans. He's apart from them. But are we, which includes him, all advanced animals? So he's really into this classification, or almost scientific classification of things. But he does join himself there to the advanced animals and not to the humans there as well.
And saying with possession, like, does he mean with like possessed?
Animals
with possession?
Is it because he's talking about shirts? Are we just animals with possession, as in, animals walk around without possessions, and we're loaded down with them all the time? He then says, I can't connect. I view everything as if I should be playing Oblivion, pointless and full of nothing, out of reality.
Real quick, to your point a minute ago about gaming, okay, he mentioned Oblivion. That's a game. Okay.
I can't connect. So there, once again, is this feeling to me that relationships, or that he really wants relationships in his life, or he wants stronger relationships with either someone, like there are people that he's grown apart from, or he just wants more relationships in his life, or he wants to form adult relationships. He says he can't connect. Could be very much like, because it does happen, especially at that age, is that if you are introverted, then some people give up on you because you're not the fun one at the party, and at that age people want to be going out and finding themselves in this big wide world. And if you're introverted and a bit more inside yourself, then you can find yourself losing touch with your friend group as they go out and discover how big the world is. You want to keep your world smaller.
That makes a lot of sense.
And again, we've got this full of nothing, out of reality. So again, this daydream thing, I think, that's going on, that he's got in his head, or what's going on in his head is nicer than what's going on in his life. He can paint better pictures inside there than the reality there.
Interesting. Yeah, man, that's crazy. Yeah, dude. I don't know, man. Like, Brian Kohberger is. I hope that there's a day whether we go through the trial and he's convicted or not, I hope that there's a day that we get some sort of interview. I know that the interviews would be vastly different depending on if he's convicted or not, but
yeah,
I don't really know his cadence. I don't know how he speaks. Just to go back to the Charles Manson interview a little bit, like there's so much out there about Manson. You get his vibe. He's off the rails most of the time, but he'll have a little bit of introspective moments dashed through. I would like to see, because honestly, I mean, this is written. It's like probably at this moment on July 4th, 2011, I would say he was having an episode. He was having a moment. He's having a little bit of a breakdown, and he's spewing that out onto the internet. Hours later, and the next day, he's probably playing Oblivion and not even thinking about this. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, it could very much be that. I think to draw a parallel with Charles Manson and the Karen Reid trials going on at the moment, and I think anyone who watches that, because of everything else that's happened, they know how Karen Reid is. They know how she talks. They know her attitudes to a lot of things. So actually, although she's not talking in court, you can sort of project the Karen that or feel through what you've seen of her into this person that's being spoken about within that courtroom with Kohberger. Nothing apart from some of this.
That's right. That's true.
So he carries on. I am moving out of my house. My last holidays were already lived, but where was I? As my family group hugs and celebrates, I am stuck in this void of nothing, feeling completely no emotion, feeling nothing. He doesn't say why he's moving out of the house.
Yeah, I'm moving out of my house. My last holidays were already lived. Okay, yeah.
I don't know. This was written in July the 4th. Is that what it says up the top there? July 4th.
Yeah. And that would have been a holiday. Yeah.
My last holidays were already lived. Now this is you could think of this as bleak. You could just think of this as a bit of lack of information. But my last holidays were already lived. When I first read that, I got the impression he means I'm moving out of the house. The holidays that I used to have with my parents in the house, they're gone. But he doesn't say that. It's very definite. My last holidays were already lived, as if there are no future holidays coming up ever.
It sounds like he's
what he says.
Going to off himself or something. Yeah,
it's kind of close to that. But where was I? As my family group hugs and celebrates, I'm stuck in a void of nothing. So again, we've got this relations thing going on. My family group, they're hugging and they're celebrating, but I'm stuck in this void of nothing. I certainly didn't feel like part of that. You'll notice he doesn't say they hugged each other and not me. I was not part of the celebrations. He was there, feeling completely no emotion, feeling nothing. Again, this is one of those absolutes, void of nothing, feeling completely no emotion, feeling nothing. There was some emotion there, like you. It's impossible to feel nothing, even if you feel a bit numb. You do not like it. Therefore, there is some emotion going on there. So a little bit persuasive there of how he is, if you know what I mean, in terms of like how. He does actually feel something, but he's sort of hiding a lot of things from us here. He's not telling us why he's moving out the house. I do think that the family may well have hugged him and celebrated, and he was there, but he's really trying hard to paint this picture of someone alone from all of that, rather than maybe someone who, very much this would be like me when I was 17. Your family wants you there and they want you to be part of it, but you're a bit too cool for school. And it's
exactly.
Like, oh, yeah. I wonder if that's a little bit what was going on.
He's being so dramatic about it, but yeah, at the end of the day, he's probably just what we all kind of felt at that point in time. Like, looking back at it as a 38-year-old now, I regret so many of those times. Like you wish you could go back and just really, because they pass, and that's your life and your family. But I remember being a douchebag teenager that was like, leave me alone. So that's definitely what that feels like.
Yeah. He then says, I feel dirty, like there is dirt inside of my head, my mind. I am always dizzy and confused. I feel no self-worth. I'm intelligent, but I feel the opposite. I say things I don't mean. So this is exactly the point that you raised there.
That is a wild couple of sentences.
Yes.
I feel dirty, like there is dirt inside my head, my mind. I always feel dizzy and confused. I feel no self-worth. I'm intelligent, but I feel the opposite. I say things I don't mean. Wow. I say things I don't mean. Yeah, that's everyone. Like we all sort of go down that road, but God, yeah, he's taking it pretty harsh here with those early statements, like the dirt in the head and the dizzying confused and no self-worth, and knowing that he's intelligent, which I mean clearly he is intelligent to get to a master's in criminology. So man, yeah, okay, what do you got on that one?
So look, we do have that low self-worth there. I have a question on here. There's not a lot that points to it, but I wonder if the I feel dirty and there is dirt inside of my head is sexual. Because we quite often relate words around the uncleanliness towards sexuality. So words like dirty do go towards sex. So I wonder if that
I
is
didn't
what's
think of
there.
that, but no, yeah, that could definitely be.
It's I wouldn't say that's like a firm conclusion there, but it is a possibility there. What I do get here is I'm going to use the word schizophrenic, and I'm not making a diagnosis in any way. I think it's just the best thing to say. There is very much, he's drawing a picture of two Brians. There is the Brian that is in his head, who feels no self-worth, who is intelligent but feels unintelligent and says things he doesn't mean. He really is drawing this picture of two Brians here, the one that he feels he is inside his head, and the one that other people see and other people measure as well with I am intelligent. Although he doesn't say people say I'm intelligent, he does I am intelligent is saying I know I'm intelligent. So again,
Yeah.
I've got this thought that some of this is maybe a little bit laying it on thick, I'm not sure, to get people to feel sorry for him, but maybe just to paint a much more vivid picture of how he feels.
Maybe even, I'm so intelligent that I'm able to see this, right? Like, an average person is probably wondering what's going on, why do I feel like this, and would go see a therapist. I'm just spitballing here, but he's at least possibly thinking, oh, I'm intelligent, I can work through this, right? And if you have went through a lot of these posts where he is he is almost trying to figure out this visual snow thing and how to cope with it and live with it day to day, and as someone that is intellectual and also someone that would say I'm intellectual, you know what I mean? I could see that. I could see him trying to self-diagnose, trying to figure out what's going on, and that feels like what he was doing with this website in general.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. This is not the writing of someone that is dumb or not intelligent or anything like that. This is someone who does not just have an educational intelligence, but also has, I guess, an introspective intelligence going on there.
Okay, interesting.
He carries on. The last holiday in my house, the house I grew up in, the house I once contributed to, the house I once felt at home in, is past. As I hug my family, I look into their faces, I see nothing. It is like I am looking at a video game, but less. I feel less than mentally damaged. It is like I have severe brain damage.
Going back to the games.
Yeah, so he's back in the games. He's also talking
that often.
a lot. He's talking about the holidays again, but he's not saying, two interesting things here. He's not saying why he's leaving this house. He's got this focus on holidays again. Now, it could be because it was a holiday that he wrote this on. So potentially that day, just something went really badly wrong for him inside the family, if you know what I mean. Like he fell out with someone or something like that. Is there an incident that has caused this bleakness in him? But then again, we've got some things that say to me he's laying this on a bit thick. It's the last holiday in my house, the house I once felt a bit of home in, but he calls it my house, not the house. There should be a little bit of distance. He's taken the ownership of the house there and he's calling it my house. Every mention of the house, though, does have finality around it. And you'll notice, again, talking of classifying things, it's not really his family he's worried about leaving behind. It's the house. It's the bricks and mortar that are there that seem to be more important to him than the family. Although I think the house represents family, love, feeling like he belongs. But he's not kind of coming out and saying those words. He talks about they're hugging my family. So remember I said before, he didn't say that they didn't hug him, and there, I hug my family, not they hug me, not as we hug, but I hug my family, showing a bit of distance there from the family. Again, I look into their faces, I see nothing. It's like looking at a video game. Again, look at all those mentions of sight. I look into their faces, I see nothing. It is like I'm looking at a video game. So what he can see is extremely, extremely important to him.
That is interesting. He is over and over and over again in this. He keeps going back to, seeing, visualizing. Yeah, dude, that's crazy. And going back to mentioning, like, the only reference point he almost has is video games.
Yes. Oh God, yeah. I mean, I don't know. You hear lots of people say that video games do alter your mind in certain ways. So potentially that's something that is happening to the guy.
Interesting.
He says, I'm stuck in the depths of my mind where I have to constantly battle my demons. Am I here or am I fake? I feel myself slipping away. I hear screams faintly, but I constantly battle away from it. What if I let go? Where would I be? Would I ever come back to reality? So we've got once more this concept of dual existence going on with the guy. Yeah, there does seem to be a sense of this battle in his head. But you can just see that he's winning the battle if you actually read his words. I constantly battle away from it. So, he is actually saying he is going away from it. If I let go, where would I be? So he hasn't.
He realizes if he just kind of lets this take over, he could sink.
Yes.
And he's got to fight.
Yes, but he's not. He is fighting and he's not sinking in his words there, which again suggests to me some of the talking about despair. I'm constantly battling. I have to constantly battle my demons. That's almost a bit of a cliche around, mental health and so on. It's not. There's nothing specific in there at all. What are your demons? How do you battle them or anything like that? He's almost brought a mental health cliche in there. I'm not saying this is the writings of someone who has not got some real mental issues going on at the time. What I am saying is I think he's laying it on just a little bit thick here in the writing there. He also says, I hear screams faintly, but I constantly battle away from it. So I want you to remember the faint screams that he hears, because again, that's not very loud. It's faintly, and he battles away from them. Just remember that because it comes up later.
And I think this is where he says, am I here or am I fake? That's almost also sort of could be a video game reference, right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like he might think, at least at this point in time, it'd be interesting to know now if he thinks we live in a simulation.
Yes. Or, and this is just supposition on my part, in video games, we have not complete control, but we have control over our actions. Right. Actually, we have a lot of control. We can set it on easy, hard, or expert mode, and so on. We have a lot more control in video games, and they are a lot more predictable than real life. So I wonder again if video games are comforting to him against the buffeting of everything that's going on in a 17-year-old boy's life.
Super interesting.
Then we get again, and this is why I think there are family issues at the heart of this. I try to remember where I originated from, but I can't. I barely remember my childhood. I often fear being 80 years old, alone, and having faint memories of my parents, everything I missed out on. So, interesting things there. I barely remember my childhood. Well, that means you do remember it. Do you know what I mean? That is not, I can't remember it entirely. It's just, I barely remember it. So you're being persuasive there and trying to tell us, trying to give us the impression that none of your childhood remains in your brain, but you are saying, I do remember it. I just barely. And then 17. I often fear being 80 years old, alone, and having faint memories of my parents, everything I missed out on. He's missed out all of adult life there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's 17.
17. I'll get to 80. He hasn't mentioned having relationships of his own, wives of his own, families of his own, grandchildren of his own by the time he's 80. He's going to be 80 years old and alone. Adult life has not come into this whatsoever. But there you go. He's going to get to 80 and have faint memories of his parents and everything that I missed out on. So again, parents are just this recurring theme around his problems. And it does seem to be now, he has a real regret around the relationship and how that's turned out with his parents. This is not, we're talking about ourselves at 17. This is not me going, I hate them and I know I'm right. And they will see it my way. When I am 30, they will go, my God, you were right. We were wrong. That's how I was in my head. We were always going to be friendly, but they would come around to my way of thinking. That's how I saw things, but he's seeing things completely different, that this is going to go like two separate ways, which again, like things about leaving the house, like things about my last holiday. This guy thinks that the relationship with the parents is about to rupture for forever.
Dude, yeah, man. Yeah, back when I was 17 and I would have been writing 17, 18, 19, 20 in the college phase, coming out of, he's at the branch point of becoming a teenager into adulthood. I had problems with my parents too. I had problems with with adults in general. It's a rebellious stage of your life.
Yeah.
But at the same time, for him to completely, but for just for another example here of like just kind of putting myself in here, if I was in when I was in this spot in my life at 17 or 18 years old, even if I had issues, I wasn't thinking that deeply into the future as an 80-year-old man who now has all these regrets, right? Like the older I get now, you start to think a little bit more, into those, the golden years, just to not get too morbid here. But at the same time, when I was that young, you're not thinking about it. You have your whole life ahead of you. You're like, you've got all these beats that you maybe want to hit, whether that's education, whether that's family, whether that's work, whatever. But he has skipped straight to dementia, like in an old folks home.
He then goes on to just say it out loud. I think about my father, what a good man he is, how I treated him like dirt because I have this condition and I can't take it. I might spiral out of control and lose myself in the void. I can't let it all go. Mentioned dirt again. This time he treats his father like dirt. You'll notice, by the way, this is on this forum about this visual snow condition. And this is the first time he's mentioned the condition at all and everything that is here, which is this is like an outpouring. It's it's definitely not been asked for by anyone. So he has taken upon himself on this forum to go blah, and just let it all out for some reason. Whether this is just where he feels like he can be himself, or I do suspect this is where he feels he might get a little bit of sympathy back or empathy back from people that maybe he has already by talking about his condition, and people are like, oh yeah, get you, like, he doesn't feel so alone with this condition. But this is the first time that he's mentioned the condition. And then again, and this is why I think he's laying it on just that little bit thick, is I might spiral out of control and lose myself into the void. I can't let it all go. This shows he's still that, like earlier, he is battling, but he's winning this battle. He's not as hopeless with this battle as he maybe would like us to get the impression of when we look into his words.
Actually, right there, after Forward came through, I wonder how his post compares to others in this forum. Now, that's something I've never. The only reason I even know about this website is because of Brian Kohberger. So I don't know what other individuals or people post on here regularly. It seems like it's almost like a message board for folks to talk about whatever. I mean, I've been on random message boards. Usually the message boards I'm on are something like a niche, like it's a game or a movie or something very specific. This is just sort of life. Like,
I do think though that you talk about niche, this is very probably, it's a great question. What is everything else like here? This is probably a safe place for people who suffer from this condition. And if you just think about life in general, there are people who suffer, name any illness, and people, there's a spectrum of how people cope with it. Some people do amazing things even though they have the most horrible diseases, and other people, it really limits them as to what they can do and how they look at life and so on. They've got the exact same condition. They react in different ways. It's probably somewhere where I guess some people might feel inspired to go and achieve great things, even though they've got the same condition. Some people feel a little bit, well, look at me, I've got the condition that's debilitating you, but I'm actually getting on with my life. But there's probably that bond that's got them all there in common. So it's probably a highly empathetic place, if nothing else.
Wow, dude. Yeah, man. All right, we'll go on here a little bit.
All of these regrets I predict for my future self, all of these thoughts of remorse, I got this when I was in my stage of discovery. Now I look in the mirror and I see this sickly, tired, and useless and stupid man in the mirror. He's a complete disgrace. He doesn't even deserve to live.
Whoa.
Okay.
Shit. What a sentence.
So we've got the daydreaming again, these regrets for my future self, like you said, for all the troubles that I remember having in teenage years, and I would just classify them as normal troubles. Like you said, they felt terrible at the time, but then you see, generation after generation all experiencing the same things. But he really is going out there predicting regrets for his future self. You'll notice it's not picturing bad times. miserable times, it's regrets. So
Right.
again, there's a bit of an intelligence there, which is that he knows if he acted differently, even like in this future scenario that he's painting, if he acted differently, he would have no regrets. That's an interesting one. All these thoughts of remorse as well. I think he said it there, he didn't like the way he treated his dad. And I think that is very much at the heart of this. This is not about worry about the future, more unless in the sense of if what he's done in the past resonates throughout the future. If he doesn't make amends for something now, if he carries on the way he's carrying on, he will have this remorse and he will have these regrets. But I think this is all about something that has happened to him in the past. And I think in the past couple of years, something has happened and it is going to draw a line in it. Again, Charles Manson talked about looking in the mirror a hell of a lot. And look, we all talk about looking in the mirror. So I'm not saying he's definitely a guilty serial killer because he mentions mirrors like Charles Manson.
Yeah,
all I'm saying is a very similar thought process to this, image and reality there with the guy.
Yeah, dude. What an insane thing to say. And then when he's saying right here, now I look in the mirror and I see this sickly, tired, useless, and stupid man in the mirror. I know that he had a problem with heroin. He was addicted to heroin.
Really?
I don't know if that was after. I would imagine it was not as a teenager, but also I don't know. But he did have a heroin issue that he got off of. Which is crazy.
In language, and if you were looking at this, if you were looking at someone's words, if they express a concern for self all the time, a concern for themselves over others all the time, that is normally a sign of addiction, not necessarily a serious drug addiction. It could be a prescription drug addiction or alcoholism or something like that. Now, while this is very self-focused, there is some looking out. He wants to get connections with his family and so on. This is not all about, I don't believe this is about getting the next fix, but it could be, because he is very inwardly focused, but it's not quite the concern for self that you would see in, for example, there was a case recently with the mother of some missing children, and her biggest problem was that she didn't have the kids in their bed that night. Not that the kids weren't in their bed and were out there, or were missing, but that she didn't have them in their bed. It was all about her,
right?
And that suggested to me there was some addiction going on here. That she was really concerned with herself. I mean, it could be. It could be, because there is a lot of concern for self, but it's a very different, less immediate concern for self. Than like he's concerned for his future self and his 80-year-old self. So it's like, it's not a concern in the moment.
Dude, super interesting, man. Yeah, that's crazy.
But again, this I use the phrase schizophrenic, and like I say, I'm not using it in a psychological way. I'm just saying two Brians. Notice that he looks in the mirror and he doesn't see himself. He's talking about someone else. This sickly, tired, useless man in the mirror. He is a complete disgrace. He doesn't deserve to live. So we've got these two Brians going on again. I know he's talking about the same person, but he doesn't say, I look in the mirror and I look sickly and I look tired and I'm useless.
Right.
I'm a stupid man. I'm a disgrace. I don't deserve to live. No, he talks about someone else. He talks about this other.
Yeah, he's talking about it like he's a passenger in his own head, looking into the mirror, and he knows that he has the control over this entity. But yeah, it's like he's in the back of. It's like he's a passenger, just hanging out, watching it happen. In the way he's writing there, that's really interesting.
Okay, if you're talking parallels, the next bit is very interesting. I remember when I was 15, I would wander alone at 2 a.m. Everything was so generic. Nowhere felt like home. I saw things that were not there, a different reality. I felt eerie and alone. I died during those nights. I felt like a criminal, but where was my record?
Whoa.
Well, given what he's been accused of.
Well, yes. Well, you know what? Yeah, dude. Hold on. I remember when I was 15, I would wander alone at 2 a.m. That does kind of go back into him saying he likes to Stargate. Let's just put that there. Everything was so generic. Nowhere felt like home. I saw things that were not there, a different reality. That's he's hallucinating, it sounds like. I felt eerie and alone, and I died during those nights. Could that... I would like to know when he started heroin, because that could almost be talking about doing heroin at 2 a.m. away from, I don't know.
Well, I was going to pull the last line of that bit there, which is, I felt like a criminal, but where was my record? And so I
Right.
wondered if he was doing something criminal in those nights, just never got caught. Therefore, you would feel like a
What?
criminal, but you don't have a record. I guess taking illegal drugs would be one of those things that happened then.
And what a crazy thing to say, especially in hindsight, knowing what we know now. Again, innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. But at the end of the day, this guy is accused of killing 4 different kids. I felt like a criminal, but where is my record? That is wild, dude.
Yeah.
This whole post is crazy.
Also, again, I felt eerie and alone. So again, this focus on contact or lack of contact there, he felt alone. Now, I don't know what, I would wander alone at 2 a.m. I felt eerie and alone. Well, yeah, that's an expected feeling if you were alone, isn't it? So why does he bring up the fact he felt alone when he was alone? Don't know.
That's weird. Yeah, man.
I died did make me wonder if he was mourning his past self. So did something happen when he was 15? I died during those nights. So did something happen when he was 15? This could be the drugs thing. It could be that he feels he lost his childhood self at that point. I died during those nights. I felt like a criminal. Where was my record? Did something happen at 15 that made him think, or makes him feel now, I'm not the person I was. I am now this sickly, tired person.
It does feel like something major happened at 15 years old.
Yeah.
And 15, that's right before you start driving, right in that ballpark of where you start driving. And that's when you kind of start going out there and getting into some things maybe you shouldn't be getting into too.
Here we go. There's just more of this change. I can't talk without flinching now. I used to be this healthy, blonde-haired boy with blue eyes, and in a few years, I have darker hair and darker eyes, half the body weight. Where did I leave off? So we've got the mourning of the past sense again. We've got all the visual stuff. So he's talking about how he looks, healthy, blonde-haired boys with blue eyes. In a few years, I have darker hair and darker eyes. So very, talking about what he can see. Where did I leave off? I found like a curious old phrase, like where did I leave off? Again, this just feels like leave off, left that younger person behind.
Yeah, dude. Like this is such a. Now, here's a question. Is this the only post on this site that you really dug into? Did you go through any of the other ones?
It's the only one I really dug into. I started looking at, because you sent me every post he'd ever made on this site, 12 pages of them. What I started looking at, first of all, was what were his reasons for posting? So just not necessarily digging into word choices and so on, but just like, what is his reason for being here? Why is he there? And I thought it was for connection. And when I was looking at it, it was very much that kind of, I feel like maybe somewhere I'll be accepted and I will be, listened to. Now, when did he start making posts on this? It was
2009, I believe.
2009. So
either late 08 or 09. So we're a few years into this. I think he posted 2012.
Yes, and this is 11. So he would start posting round about the time that he was 15, round about the time that I think something happened in his life. So, let's be fair. It could be the fact he got this condition. Because I know that medical conditions can really affect us mentally when there is something up with us, especially I hear it with things like tinnitus that just doesn't go away, that's with you all the time, that becomes really wearing you down. So it could be that, or it could be something that happened on these 2 a.m. nights.
One thing, I know we're getting a little bit short here on time. You've got something immediately after this, right?
I have it 9. I mean, it'll be there forever. Nicole Kessinger, Chris Watts, his girlfriend at the time that he killed his wife and 2 kids. Looking at the police interview she gave just 3 days after the murders, the day after Chris confessed. Lots of people wanted me to look at this to go, did she know what was going on? Did she realize the danger? Or even some people have said, like, was she actually involved in it or something like that? So I've been looking at the police interview. Man, she's something. She is something. But yeah, well, I won't give away anymore. You can watch yourself and find out what I think is her involvement or lack of it in what happened to Shanann Watson, Bella, and Celeste.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't want to go overboard, or, too far over time limit here, and for your premiere.
No, that's all right.
and then I, anything else that you definitely want to touch on in this post as well, I want to make sure we get to.
Let me just, I think really there's just that the one thing that I can't get over, and it just comes up time and time again in the rest of it, is this talk of vision. And I know it's an eye forum, or an eye condition forum, but it's a lot more than that. He talks about focusing on things. He talks about visual concepts like what he can see all the time and what he can't see and so on. So it's just, I do think like his biggest thing here is relating with people.
Yeah, just kind of looking at it right here. I try to clear my head, but the pressure won't go away. The pain and depression won't leave. Yeah, this is really fucking with him.
Yeah.
And I don't know a lot about visual snow, honestly. I mean, is it something that does not go away? Do you keep that with you forever? I don't know. I don't know how you really, mitigate that.
And then just before I do some conclusions, which I'd like to do, the very last 3 words that he uses.
Can you relate?
Question mark. He wants to get something back. He wants to get, he's putting this out there because he wants to form the connections with people for whatever reason. And this is his way of doing it.
Looking down through here, I guess underneath here is actually people that were maybe talking or, answering him or.
Yeah.
I didn't look through much of that. Yeah. He wants, can you relate to this?
Yeah. So I think in conclusion, I do think this is not the workings of a happy person at all, but I do think he's over-egging his mental state. I don't think he wrote it in a good place, but I think he's laying it on a little bit to get this empathy, to try and get some people to feel some sympathy for him and to come forward and to start relating with him. I think something did happen 2 years ago, which really rocked his self-worth, rejection, perhaps from his family. In fact, almost definitely from his family. His relationship with his father is there. But given what he's accused of, I did think it's always worth looking at what is missing when you look at some words like that. Now, it's natural to assume he's a 17-year-old boy. He is looking to relate. He's low on self-worth. That maybe there's an intention that he'd like to form a mate, a relationship with a woman. But that doesn't come into it whatsoever. If you look there, he doesn't mention the only other person he mentions by name or title is his father.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is about him trying to form sexual relations or boyfriend, girlfriend relations with anyone. This is about actual human connection to him. I don't think he's fussy about who it is that he forms these connections with. He's just desperate for some form of connection.
Interesting. Yeah, I can totally see and feel that from everything we went over. He did an amazing job of breaking this down, Jack. That was incredible. And yeah, I can't wait till we get into the trial. And as of right now, it's still going on in August. I don't know if that's going to change. I feel like it might with a lot of the stuff that's going on, but super interesting, dude. Like the fact that we even have this, and now we're coming into an era in a world where potentially murderers, again, allegedly, but murderers who have posted on the internet in the past, and we'll be able to look at that stuff.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
It's going to be fascinating because our diaries are online now. They really are. As much as you might think it's all locked down, it would only take someone. So when was that? 2011. It would only take someone a few minutes to go and get screenshots of everything I was posting in 2011 and find out what was going on in my life, for better or worse. So for anyone that's going to get accused of, there's a case here in the UK at the moment where a guy, allegedly, because I'm in the UK and I've got to say these things, drove his car through a parade, causing some injuries to people. And within a couple of days, the papers are just full of this guy's history just by scanning Facebook and looking at where he's been on holiday and who he took on holiday from just his Facebook pictures. So it's already here.
Dude, and what I'm doing right now is it looks like your premiere is about to rock right now. I'm getting the link. I'm putting that in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
So definitely go over there right now, guys. There you go. It'll pop up on the screen. But if you hit that link, that will take you straight to Jack's channel. He's got a premiere happening right now. Jack, this has been absolutely unbelievable. Thank you again, sir.
So much fun. Thank you for having me.
Hopefully we can find some more interesting stuff to go into because, dude, I always love hanging out with you. Real quick, before we do get out, Vinavidi Bitchy, thank you so much for that $10 in the Cash App. I got you on the wheel. Everybody, thank you all. Amazing show. I will see you Tuesday night, Jack. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
experts.